Sejong lives in a large house. It's clean, beautiful, and very quiet. It's so quiet you can hear the clock ticking in the hallway. There are no loud noises, laughter, or running around. His daughter lives in the house. Her name is Karen. She's 6 years old. She's often sick and tires quickly. She spends most of the day in her room, quietly playing or sleeping. Sejong loves his daughter very much, but he doesn't know how to fill the house with joy. He only knows how to guard it. He makes sure everything is tidy, that it's warm, and that Karen takes her medications on time. He's young, but his face is always serious and worried. Sejong is constantly worried. He feels like something will happen to Karen when he can't see her, that she'll fall, get sick, and he won't help. This thought haunts him. He finds a solution. He buys tiny hidden cameras. They're as small as buttons. He hides one camera on a bookshelf in Karen's room. It looks directly at her bed. He places a second camera in the living room, behind a vase. A third, even in the kitchen. All the cameras connect to his phone. Now, he has a special app. He opens it and sees several images on the screen. He sees Karen sleeping. He sees the empty living room. He can watch his daughter from anywhere. It calms him down. Now he sees everything. Now he's in control. He thinks he's made his daughter's life safer. The old maid left. A new one arrived. Her name is Ifeoma. When Sejong meets her in the hall, he immediately takes her in. She's tall and stands tall. She has dark skin, sleek hair, and very attentive eyes. She looks at Sejong and smiles. Her smile is wide and open. Sejong winces. In his quiet, serious home, such a bright smile seems out of place. There's nothing to smile about here. He speaks to her sternly, explains the rules, says that silence is essential, that no noise should be made or Karen disturbed, that it's important to strictly follow the daily routine. Ifeoma listens and nods, but her eyes wander calmly around the room. She looks at the stairs, at the tall windows, at the door to Karen's room. She seems to notice and understand everything at once. This attentive gaze slightly irritates Sejong. He quickly ends the conversation and goes to his office. The first thing he does is pick up his phone. He opens the camera app. He wants to see how this new, overly smiling maid will work. Sejong is sitting in his office. He has documents in front of him, but he doesn't look at them. He has a phone in his hand. The screen shows the kitchen. He watches Ifeoma and Hareen. Ifeoma sat the girl down at the table. She placed a small bowl in front of her. Steam rose from the bowl. Karen looked at the food without interest, as she always does. She almost never wants to eat. But then Sejong notices something strange. The porridge in the bowl isn't white or semolina, which he approves of. It's yellow. Ifeoma is chopping something finely and adding it on top. Sejong peers closer. It appears to be pieces of some kind of fruit. And then he sees Ifeoma lightly sprinkle the dish with a pinch of powder from a small jar, from his own supplies. It's turmeric. The smell must be strong and spicy, because Karen wrinkles his nose. Sejong tenses. His fingers tighten on his phone. This isn't the right food. This isn't according to the rules. The doctor didn't prescribe any yellow porridge with turmeric. Ifeoma sits down next to her. She doesn't force it. She takes a spoon, brings some of the porridge to her mouth, pretends to taste it, and smiles. Then she offers the spoon to Karen. She opens her mouth hesitantly. Sejong waits for what's coming next. Refusal, tantrums, tears. But Karen chews slowly. Her face changes. She's not crying. She opens her mouth again, and again. She takes another spoonful, and another. She doesn't turn away. She eats. Sejong can't believe his eyes. He watches the plate empty. Hareen has eaten almost everything, the last spoonfuls. Ifeoma wipes her mouth with a napkin. And then another miracle happens. Hareen looks at Ifeoma and smiles. A small, weak, but real smile. But Sejong feels not relief, but a wave of anger. Who is she to change the rules? To give unknown food to a sick daughter? It's irresponsible. It's dangerous. His fear immediately turns to anger. His anger is hot and swift. He doesn't think about Karen's smile. He thinks only about the violation, about the fact that someone dared to compromise his security system. He immediately finds the kitchen intercom function in the app. He presses the button. A sharp ringing sound emanates from the kitchen speaker. On the screen, he sees Ifeoma and Hareen jump in surprise. He turns on the microphone. His voice, cold and harsh, comes out of the speaker in the kitchen. Ifeoma, come to my office immediately and throw out this food, right now. His tone brooks no argument. There's no fear on Ifeoma's face, only mild surprise. She nods toward the camera, though she's not sure where it is. She whispers something to Kaerin, stands, and walks out of frame. A minute later, she stands in the doorway of his office. She is still calm. You called me, Mr. Sijon? Yes. His voice trembled with rage. What was that? What did you give my daughter? It's porridge with banana, a little butter, and a pinch of turmeric. My grandmother always... I don't care what your grandmother did, he interrupts. You're not a doctor. You have no right to change a diet. Have you seen the list of approved foods? I saw it, sir. And? Did you find bananas and turmeric in it? Did you? No. But. No buts. Sijon slams his palm on the table. You acted presumptuously and broke the cardinal rule. You're fired. Pack your things. I'll pay you for today, and you'll leave my house immediately. He says it clearly, expecting to see fear, justification, tears on her face. But her expression remains surprisingly clear. If Oma doesn't move, she looks straight at him. Her gaze isn't brazen, just calm. I understand your anger, she says quietly but firmly. But before I go, answer one question. Sijon is silent, his brows furrowed menacingly. When was the last time Heron ate a whole bowl of breakfast? Ifoma asks. The question catches him off guard. He tries to remember. A week ago? 2? She always picks at her plate, pushing it away. He calls the doctor, who switches vitamins, but her appetite doesn't return. It doesn't matter, he mutters. It's important, she insists softly. She ate everything, for the first time in probably a week. She didn't just eat. She smiled afterward. Did you see that? He saw. And these words, spoken aloud, disarm him. His anger, so confident a second ago, begins to crack. He was thinking about the rules, about breaking them, and she's talking about the result, about the girl eating, for real. He looks at the floor. The rage fades, leaving behind an unpleasant emptiness and confusion. He doesn't know what to say. His dismissal order hangs in the air, but it no longer sounds so convincing. He is silent, a long, painful silence. Wait in the hallway, he finally says, not looking at Ifeoma. She silently leaves and closes the door. Sijon picks up the phone, but not the one with the cameras, the other one. He finds the number of Karen's attending physician, Dr. L. He picks up the phone on the second ring. Sijon, trying to speak evenly, describes the situation. Yellow porridge, banana, turmeric. Turmeric? Dr. Lee asks again. There's interest in his voice, not anger. And she ate it? Yes, I ate it, the whole portion. If she eats almost nothing for weeks and today eats a full bowl of healthy porridge, that's a victory. A victory at any cost within reason. What you described is within reason. Memorize the recipe. The doctor pauses and adds what Ifeoma has already said, but now it sounds like a medical verdict. If she eats, that's the main thing. The rest is details. Trust the person who was able to feed her. He says something else about observation, but Sijon can barely hear him anymore. He thanks her and hangs up. He sits in the chair and stares at the wall. All his confidence, his entire system built on control and prohibitions, has just taken a blow. From the maid, and the doctor, an authority figure, supported her, not him. Sijon stands slowly. He feels strange, as if the ground is slipping from under his feet. He goes to the door and opens it. Ifeoma is standing by the window in the hallway, looking out into the garden. She turns. There is neither triumph nor reproach in her eyes, just anticipation. You can stay, he says with difficulty. The words come hard to him. But, from now on, if you want to change anything about your diet or routine, discuss it with me first. He expects an argument. But Ifeoma simply nods. Okay, Mr. Sijon, I will do so. Okay, he mutters. Get back to your duties. She nods again and walks down the hallway toward the stairs. Sijon watches her go. Then he goes back into the office and picks up his camera phone. He opens the app. The picture from the kitchen is empty. He switches to the living room. It's also empty. Then to the nursery. And then he sees them. Ifeoma is already in Hareen's room. She's not cleaning. She's sitting on the carpet next to the girl. In front of them is a sheet of paper and pencils. Ifeoma is drawing something. And Hareen watches, her mouth slightly open. And then Sijon notices a detail. There's a barely noticeable yellow mark on Karen's face around her mouth, from that very turmeric. Ifeoma notices it, takes a wet wipe, and gently wipes the girl's cheek. She says something, and Ifeoma laughs in response. A quiet, throaty laugh. Sijon turns off his phone. He doesn't want to watch anymore. He leans back in his chair and closes his eyes. For the first time in a long time, he hears not an order, not a plan, but a simple, disturbing question. What if he's been doing everything wrong? What if his strict rules, his cells, his silence, aren't a wall protecting Karen, but another invisible cage? This doubt is small and sharp, like a needle. It has pierced his confidence, and it can no longer be pulled out. Saijan is at a meeting. His head is full of numbers and contracts, but somewhere in the background, like a ticking alarm clock, the thought of home is playing. He periodically takes out his phone and opens an app. All is calm. Karen is in her room, drawing at her desk. Ifioma is somewhere nearby, appearing in the frame to hand the girl a glass of water. Then he looks at the screen again 20 minutes later. The room is empty. His heart gives an unpleasant jolt. He quickly switches cameras. The living room is empty. The kitchen is empty. Where are they? Panic, cold and familiar, grips his throat. He frantically considers all the options. The bathroom, the closet, and then he switches to the camera by the front door, which he rarely watches. He sees them. Ifioma wraps Heron in a large, soft blanket, right over her house clothes. She puts a hat on this girl. Then Ifioma opens the heavy front door. The gray light of a cold day shines through the doorway, and they step out. The door closes. He looks at the blank image from the camera and doesn't believe it. She took her outside, without his permission, without warning. It's chilly outside, the wind is blowing. Karen might catch a cold. She'll get worse. This is reckless. This is a betrayal of his trust, which, incidentally, he never fully gave. He jumps up from his seat, ignoring his partner's surprised looks. Urgent. I'm leaving, he snaps, and practically runs out of the room. He's speeding in his car, breaking the speed limit. The most terrifying images are playing in his head. Karen crying in the cold wind, her pale, ill. He replays the moment they walked out the door over and over again. Why didn't he stop them immediately with the intercom? His hands are shaking on the steering wheel from anger and fear. He bursts through the gate of his house, abandoning his car not in the parking lot, but right in the driveway. He jumps out without even turning off the engine and runs into the house. The hallway is silent. He rips off his coat and runs up the stairs, 2 steps at a time. He throws open the door to Karen's room and freezes on the threshold. The room is warm. Karen is lying in her bed. She's not pale. On the contrary, her cheeks are flushed, as if with a slight blush. She's not crying. She's sleeping. Her breathing is even and deep, her chest rising and falling calmly. The blanket they wrapped her in is neatly folded on a chair nearby. Ifioma is not in the room. Saijan approaches cautiously and touches his daughter's forehead. It is warm, normal. He looks at her calm face and feels the wave of impotent anger wash over him again, but now it has nowhere to go. She shatters against this image of peace. He leaves the room and quietly goes downstairs. He finds Ifioma in the kitchen. She's washing dishes. She hears his footsteps, turns around, and wipes her hands. He doesn't shout. His voice is quiet, but it vibrates with suppressed rage. What did you do? You took her outside, without my permission. You're not thinking at all. Ifioma listens. She doesn't make excuses. When he finishes, she looks at him with that direct, calm gaze that's beginning to irritate him even more than the shouting. It's 10 degrees outside, he says, trying to bring the conversation back to the facts. She's weakened. Just a draft. She was wrapped in a warm blanket. Ifioma answers calmly. We were only out for 10 minutes. We weren't walking. We just sat on the bench by the porch. She watched the birds fly. She breathed in the fresh air, not the air conditioning. It was a risk. His voice rises. Everything in life is a risk, Mr. Saijan, she says, and for the first time, her voice sounds firm rather than soft. Sitting within 4 walls without movement or fresh air is also a risk. The risk of becoming weaker. The risk of forgetting what the world looks like. He wants to say something to cut short this unacceptable speech, but Ifioma continues. She takes a step forward, not looking away. I respect your concern. It's immense, but I must ask, and the answer is not mine, but yours. She pauses briefly. Do you want Karen to fear the world or to live in it, even if that world is sometimes cold and unsafe? The question hangs in the kitchen air. It seems simple, but every word is a blow. Afraid of the world, lived in it. Saijan had always believed that to protect meant to shield from everything, from the cold, from germs, from danger. But this question turns everything on its head. So, by protecting, he can only teach her to fear? He can't find an answer. His anger fades, leaving behind confusion and a new, even more uncomfortable thought. He remains silent, clenching his jaw. Ifioma sees that he won't answer. She nods slightly, as if she hadn't expected an answer. Her cheeks are rosy and she's fast asleep. That's what I see. A simple, obvious result. Ifeoma's question plays in his head again and again. He can't find an answer, but for the first time, he begins to doubt the validity of his own. A few days after the walk incident, another small miracle occurs. Sejun is working in his office. He looks at the camera screen less often. "Dad," she says in a quiet but clearer voice than before. "Yes, darling? I have pencils, black and gray, from the guest box." She shows him two ordinary pencils. "Can I have colored ones?" Sejun looks at her. Before, she rarely asked for toys. She didn't have the energy to spend long on them. Her world was limited to her bed, a picture book, and a window. And now she stands before him and asks for colored pencils, so she can draw. He feels something warm and tugging in his chest. "Of course you can, as many as you want. Want to buy a whole big box?" She nods, and a sparkle lights up in her eyes. It's not just agreement, it's anticipation. He immediately orders a large box of the finest, softest colored pencils. They arrive 2 hours later. Sejun carries the box himself to Karen's room. Ifeoma helps the girl open the package. They spill the crayons onto the light wood of the table. There are lots of them, all the colors of the rainbow. Karen carefully touches them with her fingers, her eyes wide. Sejun stands in the doorway, watching. He sees Ifeoma pick up a piece of paper and draw a circle with a bright yellow pencil. "This is the sun that warmed us outside," she says. Karen reaches for the pencils. She spends a long time choosing. Her fingers finally pick up a green pencil. With effort, but very carefully, she draws a jagged, curved line on the paper next to the sun. "This is grass," she whispers. She smiles at her grass. Sejun quietly closes the door. His mind is empty of thoughts. There's only this image. His daughter, choosing a green crayon to draw the grass she saw for 10 minutes while sitting on the bench. She was too weak to draw. Now she draws grass. It's a simple fact, but for him, it speaks louder than any words. That evening, Sejun finally opens the app. Old habit takes over. He checks the cameras one by one. Kitchen, living room, hallway, all are fine. Then he switches to the camera in the children's room. The screen goes black. He blinks. He tries again. Black screen. Panic, sharp and instant, hits him again. Malfunction, breakdown, sabotage? His brain immediately runs into the worst-case scenarios. He jumps up from the table and practically runs into Karen's room. He carefully opens the door. A nightlight is on in the room. Karin is asleep. All is quiet. His eyes search for the camera. He knows where it is. On the top bookshelf, among the old encyclopedias. The camera is still there, but it's covered. Someone has carefully, without moving it, placed a folded soft baby blanket on top. Sejun doesn't touch the blanket. He leaves the room and quietly goes downstairs. He finds Ifeoma in the small servants' quarters. She's reading a book. Seeing him, she puts the book down and looks at him, expecting a question. He doesn't ask why. The answer is clear. He says the first thing that comes to mind. "You knew." It's not a question, but a statement. Ifeoma nods slowly. "Yes, since the third day. You look at your phone in a special way, not like you're looking at messages, like you're looking through a window. And the camera in the kitchen is poorly hidden," she says without reproach, simply stating a fact. Sejun is silent. He feels ashamed, even though she says nothing accusing. She started painting," he says, not quite sure why. "Yes. And for that, she needs the feeling that she's not on display, that she has her own little corner. Just a little corner." Ifeoma places a small but significant emphasis on the last word. Even a bird in the most golden cage needs a blanket sometimes, so it can sleep peacefully, not to hide it from the world, but to give it peace. He understands. This isn't an attack. This isn't a rebellion. It's a sign, gentle but clear. A sign that his daughter, even one so small and sick, needs her own space. Privacy, a place where she doesn't feel watched. The blanket over the camera isn't a concealment. It's a request to trust. To trust her, Ifeoma, and to trust Karin. To trust that something good is happening in this room, something that doesn't require constant monitoring. "I won't do this anymore," he says quietly, referring to the cameras. "It's your decision," she replies, "but I'll only remove the blanket at your word." She gives him a choice. Maintain the appearance of control or take a step. He looks at her, then looks away. "Leave it," he says hoarsely. "Let it lie there for now." He's not ready to turn off the camera completely, but he's ready to accept this covering. This is his first, very small, and very difficult step back. A step toward giving Karen not only safety, but also a small room where she can paint the sun in secret. The blanket lies on the camera for 3 days. Saijan logs into the app, sees the black screen of the nursery, and shudders every time. Then he remembers the blanket, and the anxiety subsides a little, but it doesn't go away completely. Now he goes upstairs more often and simply peeks into the room. He sees Heron drawing or listening to Ifioma read her a story. Everything is fine. Every time he sees it with his own eyes, he feels relief. On the 4th day, he stands in the doorway of his office, looking at the stairs. He wants to go check again, but he stops. He thinks about Ifioma's question. Do you want her to fear the world or live in it? And now he asks himself another question. Do I want her to live under my constant gaze? Even when everything is fine? There is no answer. There is only action. He returns to his office, sits down at his desk, and turns on the computer. He finds the camera control program. He finds a device listed under Karen's room. Next to it is a disable button. He hovers his cursor over it. His finger pauses. He's scared, really scared, as if he's about to turn off not the camera, but the life support system, as if he's about to cut off his own eye. His heart is beating faster. He imagines what could happen while he's not looking. All the bad options flash through his head again. Then he remembers Karen's rosy cheeks after a walk. He remembers her fingers selecting a green pencil. He remembers her peaceful sleep under this very blanket. He closes his eyes and presses the button. On the screen, the camera status changes from active to offline. He opens the app on his phone. There's now one less camera in the list. He logs out. The camera in the nursery is no longer working. He sits and stares at the phone. He expects to feel emptiness, panic, but he feels only a strange silence inside, a silence in which there is no hum of tension. He goes upstairs again. He approaches the door of Karen's room. He hears Ifioma's voice from behind the door. She is telling some story about a smart guy. Turtle. Karen laughs. Not loudly, but he laughs. Sijan doesn't come in. He stands and listens. He guards the door, but not with a camera, just with his presence somewhere nearby. It's still control, but different, softer. He goes downstairs. He doesn't check his phone anymore. He goes to the kitchen to pour himself some water, and on the way, he takes a folded blanket from the shelf in the hall. That one. He carries it back to Karen's room and quietly, so as not to disturb her, places it on the back of the chair. Now it's just a blanket, not a screen. The next day, Sijan works from home. He decides to have lunch not in his office, but in the small dining room. He asks Ifioma to set the table for 3. When he arrives at the dining room, Karen is already seated at the table, and he immediately notices the change. Karen is wearing her usual home clothes, soft trousers and a sweater, but she has a scarf tied around her neck, a small triangular one. It's a bright, rich blue, the color of a summer sky or a deep sea. Hi, sunshine. This is your new scarf? It's very beautiful. Karen nods and presses the scarf to his cheek. Ifioma made it. Last night. It's warm. At that moment, Ifioma enters with plates. She hears the last words. She sets the plates down and looks at Sijan, as if expecting a question or disapproval. Did you knit this yourself? He asks. His voice is neutral. Yes. I have some yarn left. This color, it reminds me of good things, she says simply, sitting down next to Karen to help her. Karen wears her scarf throughout the entire meal. She eats her soup, carefully pulling back its edge. She plays with the bread, and a blue thread flashes across her chest. This bright accent changes the whole picture. The girl seems less fragile and sickly. She seems simply a girl who loves her beautiful new scarf. Sijan watches silently. He understands that this is more than just an object. It's a sign of attention, care that goes beyond the duties of serving, cleaning, looking after. This is something personal, something maternal. And he understands one more thing. Karen didn't just accept this gift. She loved it. She never takes it off. It's her armor, her piece of blue sky, always with her, even in this big, too-quiet house. After dinner, Ifoma takes Heron to rest. Sijan remains at the table. He looks at the empty chairs. Where Heron had been sitting lies a blue thread, fallen from her scarf. He picks it up and holds it in his fingers. Bright, soft, alive. A couple of days later, Sijan returns from his morning meeting. He opens the front door and stops dead in his tracks. The whole house is permeated with a scent, but it's not the medicinal smell he's used to, not the smell of cleaning products or tasteless hospital food. It's warm, rich, spicy, and incredibly cozy. The smell of freshly baked goods. Hints of ginger, cinnamon, and honey hang in the air. He can't recognize it right away. It's something homey, long forgotten. He walks into the kitchen, drawn by the aroma. Laughter comes from behind the door. Childs and adults. He peers inside. The kitchen is a bit of a mess. Bowls are scattered on the table, and flour is scattered. Karen is sitting on a high chair at the table, wearing a large apron. Her hands and even her nose are covered in white spots. On the board in front of her are strange figures made of dough, crooked stars, balls, something resembling a cat. Ifeoma stands by the oven. She's just taken out a baking sheet. Gingerbread cookies are crisping on the sheet, shaped like hearts, houses, and neat circles. Not just existing. Karen hands him his creation, a crooked, thick star, generously dusted with sugar. This is for you. The first. He takes the warm, still soft cookie. He takes a bite. It's sweet, spicy, slightly hot from the ginger. It's far from perfect, but it's the most delicious thing he's eaten in years. He looks at his daughter, who is eagerly awaiting his assessment. Delicious, he says honestly. Very. Karen looks triumphantly at Ifeoma. She winks at her. Sijon stands in the kitchen, eating this crooked cookie. The house is filled with the smell of life. Real, slightly starchy, sweet, and very warm life. It no longer smells like a hospital, but old fears and habits die hard. A day after eating the gingerbread, Sijon panicked. Karen has special vitamins, powerful, important ones. They're kept in the medicine cabinet in the kitchen, in a strictly designated place. Sijon checks their supply every morning. A ritual. This morning he opens the cabinet. The bottle of vitamins is missing. His heart skips a beat. He carefully goes through all the boxes, pushing the jars aside. Nothing. Empty. His thoughts race. Did someone steal it? Did Ifeoma move it and forget? Did she drop it and throw it away? He can't live without these vitamins. This could end badly. His breathing becomes labored. He feels a surge of that same old, familiar rage, mixed with fear. Is this another act of arbitrariness? Is she doing something again without telling him? He abruptly throws open the kitchen door. Ifeoma is mopping the hallway floor. She looks up and sees his face. She immediately knows something is wrong. She stands up and puts down the rag. Where are the vitamins? His voice sounds sharp and loud. The vitamins are for Karen. They're not there. His tone is accusatory. He's ready for an argument, for justification. But Ifeoma doesn't make any excuses. She simply nods. Please wait a minute. She calmly wipes her hands and goes not to the kitchen, but to her small room. Sijon follows her, clenching his fists. What did she do? Why did she take them to her room? Ifeoma returns with a small plastic jar in her hands. She hands it to Sijon. Here they are. Sijon picks up the jar. It's not the familiar white bottle with the blue label. It's different. And transparent, with an orange cap and a new, unfamiliar label. It has a different name on it. What is this? He whispers. His anger gives way to bewilderment. Where are our vitamins? These are vitamins, Ifeoma explains calmly. But they're new. The old ones ran out 2 days ago. I contacted Dr. L and, as you asked, discussed changes. I asked if this brand could be substituted. My previous employer's daughter took these, and they were absorbed better and didn't cause nausea. Dr. L checked the ingredients and gave the go-ahead. He said they were even preferable. She says this evenly, without reproaching him for not noticing the end of his old vitamins. She's simply stating the facts. Sijon glances back and forth between the jar and her. His rage subsides, leaving behind a feeling of awkwardness and shame. He'd yelled again. Again, he'd assumed the worst. And she'd done everything right. Better than right, even. She didn't just buy the same ones. She'd found better ones, and she'd cleared them with the doctor. Why didn't you tell me? He asks, his voice quieter. I left you a note on the fridge under the magnet, the day the new ones arrived, and I told Karen to remind you. But apparently you didn't notice. She shrugs. I didn't want to bother you with an unnecessary call. He remembers. Yes, there were some papers on the refrigerator. Receipts. A reminder for an appointment. He didn't notice. He was absorbed in work, and then the house smelled of cookies, and he forgot about it all. And Karen, does she drink them? His voice was now simply tired. Yes, without reminders. They're orange-flavored gummies. She asks for them herself, like candy, after breakfast. Sijon silently looks at the bottle. New vitamins, which the girl takes without a fuss, which are absorbed better. Everything has been decided without him, and decided well. He hands the jar back to Ifeoma. Okay, go ahead, he says and leaves. Not because he's angry, but because he needs some time alone. To process this thought, the world didn't end when he lost control of every little thing. On the contrary, some things got better. Elle arrives as scheduled, along with Karen, for a routine checkup. Sejong is nervous. He always is before doctor's appointments. He awaits the verdict. Well, doctor? Dr. L takes off his glasses and wipes them. There's a strange expression on his face. Not alarm, but rather satisfied curiosity. Sejong, what are you doing with the child? Sejong tenses. What do you mean? Something's wrong? On the contrary. Calories and joy are the best medicine. Go on. Is she taking new vitamins? Yes, no problem. Perfect. So they worked better. Dr. L pauses and looks at Sejong carefully. And most importantly, Sejong, I see interest in her eyes. Before, there was only fatigue and resignation. Now there is interest. In the drawings, in the conversation, in me in the end. You hired a new nanny, right? Sejong nods. She gets along well with her. It's not just getting along. The doctor shakes his head. It's therapy, the best possible kind. Environment, care, stimulation. Keep up the good work. Officially, according to the tests, there haven't been any dramatic changes yet. But clinically, looking at the child, there's clear progress. Stay the course. After the doctor left, Sejong sat in the office for a long time. The words progress and improvement rang in his ears. He didn't do anything special. He simply, gradually stopped getting in the way, stopped stopping Ifeoma from doing her job, stopped stopping Karen from living a little more fully. He leaves the office. He hears laughter from above. He gets up. In Hareen's room, Ifeoma is building a pillow fort. Hareen, wrapped in her blue scarf, helps her and laughs. Sejong doesn't enter. He watches this scene. This is the course. This is the treatment. And he understands that his role now isn't to build walls and turn on cameras. His role is to guard this door so that this picture inside can continue. Without fear, without interference. Just like that. Sejong can't sleep. Dr. Ellis' words keep swirling around in his head. Progress. Improvement. He tosses and turns in bed, but sleep won't come. The house is quiet, but it's not the same oppressive silence. It's the calm, vibrant stillness of the night. He gets up and decides to go down to the kitchen for a drink of water. Turning on the light, he sees that the kitchen is not empty. Ifeoma is standing by the large window overlooking the garden. She is also awake. She holds a steaming cup in her hands. They look at each other. An unexpected meeting. I couldn't sleep, Sejong says first, feeling a little awkward. Me too, she replies quietly. Sometimes thoughts are louder at night. He nods and goes to the refrigerator for water. Then he stops. He stands with his back to her and looks at the refrigerator door. What are you drinking? He asks to fill it. Herbal tea. My grandmother always made it when someone couldn't sleep. It calms the nerves. Does it help? She smiles slightly. More often than not, it's the ritual itself that helps. Taking the cup, feeling the warmth, remembering home. Maybe you'd like to try it? Sejong hesitates, then nods. Ifeoma places a small kettle on the stove, takes out another cup, and brews tea from the tea bag she brought with her. The aroma is soft, herbal. They sit at the kitchen table. For the first time, just like that, not as master and worker, but as two sleepless people in a house at night. Sejong carefully tastes the tea. It's not like usual. The taste is unfamiliar, but pleasant. Do you often think about home? He asks, unexpectedly. Every day, Ifeoma answers simply. But not out of longing, but to remember who I am. She looks at her cup. This is the turmeric porridge you wanted to fire me for. It's my grandmother's recipe. She lived in a small village. She didn't have expensive medicines. She had herbs, spices, and big hands that hugged everyone. When we were sick, sad, or just cold, she always made this porridge. She said turmeric is like powdered sun. It warms you from the inside. Banana is the strength of the earth, and her love is the honey that holds everything together. She says this without pathos, as a simple fact. I didn't want to break your rules. I just wanted to give Karen more than just food. But a little of that sun, that strength, and that feeling. The feeling of being fed not because you have to, but because you're loved. Even if to her I'm just Ifeoma. Sejong listens. He's always thought of food as fuel or medicine, a collection of calories and elements. But for her, it's history, tradition, a transfer of warmth. He suddenly understands why Karen ate the entire portion. Perhaps that's what she sensed. Not just the taste, but the intention. Your grandmother, a wise woman, he says finally. Yes. She taught me the most important thing. It's not food that heals, but the hands that prepare it, and the heart that gives with it. They finish their tea in silence. Sejong feels a strange calm. His nerves have truly calmed. Maybe it's the tea, or maybe it's this simple late-night conversation. She's already awake and having breakfast. Papa's leaving for a meeting. I'll be back in the evening, he says, stroking her head. Okay, Papa, she smiles. She has porridge in her mouth, the same yellow one. Listen to Ifioma. Of course. He stands in the doorway, watching Ifioma feed her. They chat quietly. He wants to say something, give her a stern warning, warn her to call if she has any questions. But he doesn't say that. He simply nods to Ifioma. She responds with a slight nod. There's understanding in that nod. Everything will be all right. Sejong drives away. In the car, he picks up his phone 10 times. His fingers instinctively reach for the camera app, but he doesn't open it. He turns on the radio. He looks out the window. Half an hour later, the familiar anxiety washes over him. What if? He picks up his phone, not to check the cameras. He dials the house number. He calls the landline in the kitchen. Ifioma picks up the phone on the second ring. Hello? It's me, says Sejong. Everything okay? Everything is okay. Her voice is calm. Heron finished breakfast and is now choosing which book we will read. The weather is sunny. Maybe we will go out on the balcony later. Okay? Okay. He doesn't know what else to say. I will call later. Don't worry. Focus on your own business. Goodbye. She hangs up. Sejong looks at the phone. She didn't keep him on the line, didn't give him any unnecessary details. She simply gave him the facts and let him go. She trusts him to cope with his anxiety. He doesn't call later. The meeting is tense, and he's immersed in negotiations. Only 3 hours later, during a break, does he remember home. He feels restless again, but it's less so. He sends a short message. How are you? A minute later, a reply comes from Ifoma. Not a text. A photograph. Karen is sitting on the living room floor, putting together a large puzzle. She's focused, her tongue hanging out in concentration. The edge of a blue scarf is visible nearby. Nothing more. No words, no reports. Just this picture. That's enough. Sejong puts his phone away, and for the first time in a long time, his smile at a business meeting isn't cold and businesslike, but genuine and warm. He trusts. At least for today. The meeting ends later than he planned. It's already evening. Sejong drives home tiredly. In the living room, instead of the overhead chandeliers, a floor lamp and several light fixtures are lit. The light is soft and cozy. Music plays from the speaker. It's soft, rhythmic, with a distinct drum beat. Sejong doesn't recognize the melody. It sounds African, cheerful, and powerful. Ifeoma stands in the center of the room. She sways gently to the music, tapping her feet slightly. Her movements are natural and graceful. And Karen stands before her. She's wearing pajamas with teddy bears, and that same blue scarf tied like a belt. She looks at Ifeoma, and her face lights up. Then she starts mimicking the movements. Not exactly, of course. She simply shifts her weight from one foot to the other. Then she adds a clap. Then she spins around, losing her balance, and Ifeoma catches her, without breaking her stride. This is not a dance in the full sense of the word. Karen doesn't have the strength for real dancing. But in those uncertain swaying movements, in that laughter, in her shining eyes, there's the spirit of dance, the joy of movement, the joy of simply feeling your body obey, that the music is alive, that someone nearby is moving with you. Sejong watches, holding his breath. He sees his daughter, who once struggled to sit, now rocking and clapping her hands. Her illness hasn't gone away, but at this moment, she's just a happy child. The music fades, giving way to a slower melody. Ifeoma kneels and opens her arms. Karen, laughing, falls into them, and they embrace, swaying to the rhythm. Sejong steps back from the door. His heart is beating fast. He doesn't want to disturb this picture. It's the most beautiful picture he's ever seen in his life. The next morning at breakfast, Karen can't sit still. Daddy, are we going to the park today? She asks, her eyes full of hope. Ifeoma said, there are swings there. I want to see the swings. Sejong immediately tenses. The park? It's a public place. Lots of people, children, noise, germs. His internal alarm goes off at full blast. The park? No, he says firmly, not even looking at Ifeoma. That's impossible. But why? Karen's voice turns plaintive. There are too many people there. You might get tired. It's not safe. He sees Karen's gaze dim. She lowers her head and picks at her porridge with her spoon. The joy of breakfast evaporates. Ifeoma, who had been sitting silently nearby, began cautiously. Mr. Sijan, I've thought it all through. It'll be a weekday morning. There won't be many people around. We'll go by car, stay for 5 minutes. Just watch. Too big a risk. A field near the house is one thing. A park in the city is quite another. That's not up for discussion. You can go out into the yard with her. That's enough. Ifeoma's face. But she doesn't argue. As you say, Karen no longer eats. She cries quietly, burying her face in the table. Sijon sees her tears and feels terrible, but his fear is stronger. He gets up from his desk and goes into the office, slamming the door. He thinks he's protecting her, but the sight of her tears gnaws at him all day. He arrives for dinner, gloomy and silent. Karen barely speaks to him. She's offended. It's a new feeling for him, being the object of her quiet but understandable resentment. After dinner, when Ifeoma takes Heron to bed, Sijon is left alone. He feels stuck. He doesn't want his daughter to cry, but he can't overcome his fear. He goes down to the kitchen to get water and meets Ifeoma there. She is washing the dishes. He silently takes a towel and begins to dry the plates. It is a gesture of white flag. I don't want her to cry, he says finally. I know, Ifeoma answers quietly. But the park, I can't. I imagine the worst. I understand your fear, it is real. But her desire is real too. She is not asking to ride on the swings for hours. She just wants to see them, to see the world beyond the fence. Sijon sighs. What should we do? I can't risk it. Ifeoma pauses, wiping her hands. There's a compromise. Not a park. The field we've already been to is one thing, but it's empty, and she wants to see something designed for joy. A swing? A slide? What if we find a place outside the city? Outside the city, a small playground in some village. Early in the morning on a weekday, there won't be anyone there. He returns an hour later. Not a soul. The sight is clear. A view of the field and the forest. Very quiet. Sijon nods. He is dressed in simple clothes, not business casual. He is nervous. They're driving. Karen's in the back seat in her car seat. She's beaming with happiness and anticipation. She's chattering nonstop. They're arriving. Ifeoma was right. A tiny playground with 2 swings, a slide, and a sandbox stands completely alone at the edge of a field. There's no one around. Only the birds are singing. Sijon carries Heron out of the car and sets her down on the ground. He holds her hand. Ifeoma spreads a blanket 2 steps from the swing. Heron looks at the swing, her eyes wide. It's real, she whispers. Yes, says Ifeoma. Want me to push you a little? Very slowly. Heron nods. Sijon squeezes her hand, but then lets go. The world gave her a little boat made of clouds and quiet happiness on a blanket. He was wrong. And for the first time, he's glad he was wrong. After the trip to the field, the house is filled with a different air. It's brighter. Karen remembers the cloud boat and the swing for 2 days. She started talking more. Her sentences are longer, and her voice is louder. One evening, Sijon, as often happens, is sitting in the living room. He's not working. He's simply sitting in a chair and watching Heron and Ifeoma assemble a large safari puzzle on the floor. He's watching them, not through a screen, just looking. But old habit takes over. His hand instinctively reaches for the phone lying on the table next to him. A business message arrived an hour ago, and he hasn't answered yet. His fingers find the phone and unlock the screen. He doesn't open the camera. No, he opens his email. Before, you were looking at me on your phone. Now you're looking at emails. She pauses, choosing her words. Then she makes her request. The first one he can't fulfill with a single wave of his hand or wallet. Dad, stay with us. Don't go on the phone. Look at the elephant we've built. She takes his hand and pulls it down to the floor toward the bund puzzle. Her hand is small and warm. Sijon glances between her and the phone in his other hand. The screen is still glowing, showing half an unread email. He sees Karen's gaze. Anticipation. A request to be here. Now. He presses the side button. The screen goes dark. He places the phone on the table, away from him. Okay, he says. Show me your elephant. He sinks down onto the carpet next to them. His expensive trousers are now on the floor, but he doesn't care. Karen triumphantly shows him the almost completed elephant figure. Ifeoma sits opposite him, smiling silently, watching them. Sijon sits on the floor and listens as his daughter explains which pieces were the hardest to find. It's here. All of it. That night, when everyone is asleep, Sijon can't sleep again. He stands in the dark by his bedroom window, looking out into the garden. Karen's words echo in his head. You used to look at me on your phone. He always thought the cameras were a sign of supreme care, that he was there, even when he wasn't, that he saw everything and controlled everything, and therefore protected. But for her, for Karen, it looked different. Dad was sitting next to her, but he wasn't there. His eyes were glued to the screen. Even when he looked at her, he wasn't looking at her, but at her image. A digital copy. He'd created a wall of glass and pixels between himself and his daughter, and she felt it. She felt this distance. She didn't care that it was a camera. To her, it was just a phone. A place where Dad went. Shame washes over him like a heavy, hot wave. He closes his eyes. All his efforts, all his paranoia, all those cameras, they weren't bringing him closer to his daughter. They were pushing her away. He was physically close, but emotionally, he was in another dimension. He was watching over her safety and completely missing her. The girl herself. Her need wasn't for observation, but for presence. He wanted her to fear the world. He removes a small camera from the bookshelf in the living room, removing a few books. He carefully unsticks a tiny camera from a picture frame in the hallway. He takes the camera from the kitchen, hidden in the range hood, even the one by the front door. He carries all these small devices into his office and places them in an empty desk drawer. Then he sits down at the computer. He logs into the control program. He finds each camera on the list and one by one clicks Disable Permanently. The program asks for confirmation. He clicks Yes each time. He disconnects the cloud service that stored the recordings. He deletes the app from his phone. When the process is complete, he closes the desk drawer. Silent, dark devices lie within. They no longer watch. They no longer transmit. They no longer control. Sejong leaves the office. He stands in the hallway. The house is now full of uncertainty. He doesn't know what exactly Karen is doing in the living room at this very second. He doesn't see what she's doing. If Yoma is in the kitchen, he can only hear, or go and see for himself. This uncertainty still frightens him a little. There's a familiar chill of anxiety in his chest, but along with the uncertainty, life has returned to the house. Real life, untraceable, uncontrollable, life that needs to be lived, not observed. He goes into the living room. He opens the door. Haran is sitting on Ifeoma's lap, and she's showing her pictures in a book about African animals. Look, Haran, it's an elephant. The one we collected, Ifeom says. It's big, the girl says admiringly. Sejong sits down next to them on the sofa. He simply sits and listens. He is part of this picture, not an observer. In the evening, Ifeoma cooks dinner. Today, it's not soup or anything light. Today, she's making that same yellow porridge again. Ginger porridge with banana. The scent of turmeric and ginger fills the house again. Sejong no longer winces. This scent has become the scent of change for him, the scent of life. The three of them sit down to dinner. It's becoming a habit. Previously, Sejong always dined alone in his office or was late. Now he tries to be home for dinner. Ifeoma puts a portion of porridge into Haran's bowl. Then she puts some on her own plate. Then she looks at Sejong. Will you have some? She asks. He nods. Yes, please. She fills his plate. They eat in silence, but it's not an awkward silence. It's comfortable. Karen handles the spoon carefully. She eats almost everything. Sejong eats his portion. He can taste that warm, slightly spicy flavor again. The flavor that once made him angry. Now it evokes something else. Calm. Acceptance. He finishes his plate. Then he looks at the empty plate. Then at Ifeoma. Can I have a little more? He asks. Ifeoma looks at him, and something warm, almost tender, flickers in her eyes. She silently takes his bowl and adds another spoonful of porridge. Thank you, he says. He finishes the second portion. He feels full and warm, not just in his stomach, everywhere. A week passes. The days fall into a rhythm. In the morning, the three of us have breakfast. Then Sejong goes to work or works in his office. He no longer calls every half hour. He trusts. He knows that in the evening he will return, and the house will be alive. There will be laughter, the smell of food, voices. He catches himself thinking about one thing. At first, it comes rarely, on the edge of his consciousness. Then, more and more often, he watches as Ifeoma puts Harin to bed, as she adjusts the blanket, as she sings that very African lullaby, as Harin falls asleep holding her finger. Thought, I want it to always be like this. He sees Ifeoma teaching Haran new, simple words in her language. They laugh together at his attempts to repeat them. Thought, I want this warmth to stay here forever. He sees how Ifeoma calmly and confidently manages the house. how she has brought not only order but also soul to it, how she protects Karen not with fear and prohibitions, but with love and wisdom. The thought becomes persistent, clear, and relentless. I want this person to stay in my home, not as an employee, as family. He's terrified by the thought. It's enormous and a responsibility. But the fear isn't what it used to be. It's not the fear of losing control. It's the fear of rejection, the fear that he'll propose and she'll refuse, because she has her own life, her own dreams, her own home far away. But the thought doesn't go away. It lives within him, growing and strengthening with each passing day. Sejong decides to test an old idea. He has a family ring. His mother gave it to him before she died, with the words, "When you meet the one who will become your light and support." The ring is expensive, old, with a large diamond. It is kept in a safe. He opens the safe and takes out a small velvet box. He opens it. The ring lies there, coldly gleaming in the lamplight. It is beautiful, soullessly beautiful. It symbolizes tradition, duty, the past. His mother was a kind but weak woman who spent her entire life afraid of the world and her husband. This ring reminds him of those times, of the cold, of the fear. He tries to imagine it on Ifoma's finger. It doesn't suit her. It's too ornate, too flashy, too not her. Ifoma is simplicity, strength, warmth, not the cold sparkle of a diamond. He holds the box in his hands and understands. This ring isn't about the future. It's about the past he's trying to leave behind. He doesn't want to give her a symbol of the life he fled and doesn't want for Karen. He slowly closes the box and puts it back in the safe. This isn't it. She needs something different, something new, like their new life. Sejong goes to a jeweler, not the one who's been serving his family for years, but a young craftsman he's heard creates unique contemporary pieces. He comes to a small workshop, explains what he wants. Not in detail, but the gist is clear. I need a ring. Simple, strong, warm, without unnecessary details, without large stones, so that it reflects my character, calm and reliable. The master, a man his age, nods. He asks a few questions about his preferences in metal. Sejong chooses white gold, not yellow, not rose, neutral, but durable. A week later, the master calls and invites him to view the sketches. Sejong arrives. The sketch shows a smooth, wide ring. For some reason, it's not round in cross-section, but slightly flattened, like a pebble polished by the sea. There are no embellishments on it. Only the inner side is supposed to be engraved. This is perfect, Sejong says, looking at the drawing. It's simple, strong, no frills, like Ifioma. You want it engraved? The artist asks. Sejong thinks, then he nods. Yes, one letter, N, in our language, and the date, today's. The letter N is the first in Karen's name, and in the word hope, and in the word forever. He doesn't tell the master this, but for him, this letter holds all the meaning. The craftsman takes the order. 2 weeks later, the ring is ready. Sejong comes to pick it up. It lies in a simple wooden box. He picks it up. It's heavier than it looks, smooth, warm to his touch. He runs his finger along the inside, feeling the engraving. A letter and a date. It's perfect. He pays and leaves, keeping the box in his coat pocket. Now he knows what he'll do. And where. He chooses a day. Sunny, warm. He says nothing to Ifioma, except that he wants to go to that field again, for a picnic. Karen, of course, is delighted. Ifioma packs a basket with simple food, fruit, sandwiches, water, and one more thing, a large, brightly colored kite that Sejong secretly bought and asked her to take. They drive on. The same road, the same field. It's greener now. They spread a blanket in the same spot. They sit and eat. Karis can't sit still. She asks him to fly a kite. Ifioma helps her. They run across the field, the kite first falling, then caught by the wind and soaring into the sky. Karen squeals with delight, holding the spool of rope. Ifioma stands nearby, adjusting her hands, laughing. Sejong watches. His heart beats steadily and strongly. He waits. He waits for Karen to tire a little and sit down to rest, the reel in his lap, staring at the kite soaring through the sky. Then he stands up. He approaches Ifioma. She turns to him, still smiling, her face illuminated by the sun and her daughter's happiness. Ifioma, he says. His voice is clear, but without its usual firmness. There's something vulnerable about it. She looks at him, the smile gradually fading from her face, giving way to attention. She sees that this is something important. He doesn't kneel. That would be insincere for him. He simply takes her hands in his. Her fingers are warm, a little rough from work. I don't know how to speak beautifully, he begins. I only know control, fear, and silence. She slowly removes her hand from him and turns her head. She looks at Karen, at the girl who has become like a daughter to her, who flies a kite into the sky and laughs more freely than ever before. Then she turns back to Sijan. She looks at his face, at his eyes, in which there are no longer walls, but only hope and love. She doesn't say yes. She doesn't throw her arms around his neck. She simply looks into his eyes and nods slowly, clearly, once. This nod is enough. It contains all her determination, her consent, her love. Sijan takes the ring out of the box. His hands tremble slightly. He places the ring on her finger. It fits perfectly. She looks at the ring on her hand, then back at him. And then a smile blossoms on her face. That same smile, too wide and open, that once irritated him,